Good morning, everyone. It is right at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started talking about Canvas groups. I think that being able to put students in groups in Canvas offers them a lot of options and a lot of ways to collaborate that are very unique and quite powerful. So I really wanted to start with why are we using groups? Why would we use groups in Canvas at all? And what a lot of people don't know is that in Canvas, groups receive their own space. It's almost as if they have their own mini classroom. And I'm going to show that to you later this morning. But in that group space that Canvas creates for them, it's a place where they can have their own discussions. It's a place where they can collaborate on work. They can create their own calendars and tasks. They can load files for each other to review and comment on. They can submit on behalf of the group, and they can schedule their own conferences. So it's a very dynamic space that Canvas creates for them so that they can not just submit work, but they can really collaborate and truly work together on some of these features. So we're going to start from the very beginning and take a look at how to create groups in Canvas, all the way through, and we'll go all the way through how to assign assignments and discussions to groups, and then we'll move into Canvas and take a look at it in that setting. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the Q&A forum or in the chat, because I really hope that this is something that you'll enjoy and want to try. But we're going to start with how to create groups at all. In the People tab in Canvas, you'll see this area for groups. You'll have all of your roster of students, and then you'll have a tab that says groups. You begin to add groups by adding what's called a group set, which is in the top right area. And here's where my green button is. And so what you're going to do is add a group set, a set of groups, because what you're doing is you're creating a set of groups that will work on a particular task together for a particular period of time, because you may want to have several assignments or discussions, and you may want to mix up those groups as you go. So Canvas lets you do that by creating different sets of groups. So once we create that group set, here are the options that become apparent to us as we go. We're able to make some decisions about how we want those groups to work and how we want those groups to function. We can have students just sign up and self-select their groups, and we can split them into a certain number of groups, and we can put the students into groups on our own. So you have the option of having Canvas split them. You have the option of you creating them, or you can let the students create them on their own. Once you've decided how you want your groups to be set up, then Canvas will give you this group space with your group name. And this was in a shell course that doesn't have any students in it, so I could not drag them and drop them. But basically what I would do is I would take my list of students that would show up on the left-hand side, and I would drag them into the project groups. And as I drag them into, go back to that. As I drag them into the project groups, you'll begin to see them get populated. Now, I told Canvas that I only wanted 3 people in each group. So once I drag 3 people into that group, I won't be able to drag any more. As an instructor, if you want to go and visit their group space, you can at any point in time. And you do that by clicking on those 3 vertical dots on the far right-hand side of each group and selecting Visit the Group homepage. And we're going to go and look at that homepage in just a little bit. But that is where, if you want to see if the groups are really working on things, you can always go and look on their homepage and see if there's any collaboration happening. And you can also join in. So if they are asking questions, for example, you can absolutely go into those areas and into those discussions and answer them if it will help the group move forward in what they're trying to do. On the student end, what students see when they come into their group is they see the ability to do all of these different things. First, they'll find in their navigation portal that they've been assigned to a group. They'll get a notification about that. And then when they click on that notification, all of the different groups a student is in will show up for them, and they can just pick the group that they're assigned to. So there's my project group 1. And so my student can then go to project group 1 and go into that group area. And in that group area, the student can upload files for people to review, start new discussions, create collaborative documents. They can create announcements for each other as well. So once they're in that space, there's a lot of opportunities for students to work together. So once you've created your project group and the students have been put into the group in whatever way works best for your content and your current students, the next step would be, okay, now how do I actually create an assignment and assign it to that group? And that is in your assignment details. When we create an assignment, right after we determine the assignment type and which category it goes in and all those different places, there's a box that we can check that says this is a group assignment. And once you can click on the checkbox about this is a group assignment, then you have some more things that pop up. These different areas won't pop up until you check that box. So you've got some choices here, and the first one is, do you want to grade the student work on an individual basis, or do you want to grade the group and have every student in the group get the same grade? Now, this at times has been a point where students and faculty can get a little bit confused, because if you've created a group assignment, the students in that group will only be submitting one assignment as a group. If you want to grade students individually on that group submission, then one of the things in the assignment directions will have to be to explain to the students how to inform you about which member of the group contributed which piece of the work. So even if you check grade individually, there's still only one group document that's going to be submitted. And if students try to resubmit their own pieces from the group, that's not going to come through. What it's going to do is it's going to cover up the earlier submissions. So there's really only one submission. Now, I can come here, and if I've already pre-created my groups, I can select my group category, and I can click on my project group 1 if I want to. But if I want to start a new group for this assignment and I hadn't gone over to groups to create it yet, I can go ahead and create the name of it here, and I can fill out the rest of it when I get over to that People tab. But I can go ahead and start here so I can have it going. Likewise, in creating a group discussion, right under all of those typical options, there's an area here for group discussion, and it looks exactly the same as it does in assignment details. But in Canvas, this will look a little bit different. And so now I want to take you into Canvas and let you see what some of this group work is like. So let me end this and share a different screen. Okay, we had a question about the difference between the individual versus the group grade. And that's a pretty new Canvas feature. The idea is that you have the option as an instructor to grade students as a group. And if you grade students as a group, then every member of the group will get the same grade. Or you can take that group assignment and grade each student individually. But you're still only grading one group submission. And so that means that students are going to have to communicate to you what parts they played in contributing to this group assignment, so you will know how to grade the students individually. There are a lot of ways that students can do this for you. They can actually put their names on the pieces of the group assignment that reflect their work. There can be an extra sheet attached in the assignment at the beginning or at the end that clarifies who did which part of it. There's all sorts of things on here that you can show to delineate one student's contribution from another student's contribution. And you would have to do that to grade each student individually. A lot of folks tend to want to just grade the whole group as a group, and everyone gets the same submission. Completely your choice as an instructor, especially depending on what the actual group work is. So I hope that helped. Please write again if that didn't help. And more about the collaboration document, I'm going to show you that when we get into groups. That's a great question as well. So here's my pretend Canvas course, and I don't have any people in it, but here's where my roster of people would be. And here's where my groups are. So I created my project groups, and I wanted my groups to only have 3 members each. And so here's my group 1, 2, and 3. I would really drag and drop students into these project groups so that they would be populated. And here is where I go to visit that group homepage. There's some editing I can do with groups here as well. I can change the overall name of the group. I can change the number of group members. If, for example, I didn't count correctly or more students have been added, I can change it right here and hit save. And now this group has 4. Because what if I have a number of students that don't divide equally? I can change the number of one of the groups to accommodate that. But here's that group's homepage. And so this is where our students will come, and this is their homepage. And this is the page that's dedicated to their group and to their group work. And I'm still seeing it as an instructor, but as a student, it looks very, very similar. Here's where, as an instructor, I can shift from one group to another, so I can check on all of my groups. And so I've just shifted to group 2. You can see on the left-hand side, it really is like we're in a really small mini Canvas course. We're being able here to let the groups do quite a bit of work together. So here's where they can create their own announcements, or you can create an announcement that goes out to the groups. Group members can have their own pages where they work on content. Group members can have their own discussions. And here's where discussions that have been assigned to them will show up. And I've already done that, and I'll show that to you in a bit. Here is where group members will be putting in their files. And so if group members are working on files that are eventually going to be submitted to you, and they want to upload drafts where they can work together and give feedback, this file area is where they're going to do that. Here's where group members can create a conference so that they can video conference and meet with each other inside their group space. And here's that collaborations piece on a collaborative document. We have them create a collaboration on Google Documents. And so if it's project group 1, and then we would here have the other students. And then if I hit start collaborating, now now I have a Google document that students can get to from their group area at any time and go and work on. It's a real nice feature in groups to be able to have spaces for them to work together. When I want to go back to my course, I can always go back to my course as well. The question about why a Google Doc rather than a page in Canvas or Box, it's entirely up to that group of students how they want to work. The collaborations button and area of Canvas does not, the Box integration with Canvas is not complex enough so that they could choose to like open up a Box note and work on things together. And they can create a page in Canvas if that's what they would prefer to do. And that's completely fine. It's really up to that group on how that group wants to work. And you can see at the moment the group doesn't have any. So those are group decisions, but they're group decisions that we try to give them as many choices as we can. When I want to get back to my course, I want to just click on the name of my course. And now I'm back in my course again. And here in people, a conference is like a Zoom breakout room. Yes, that's a good analogy. It's kind of their own little mini Zoom session, but it's held within Canvas. And it uses Canvas's conferencing tool, which is Big Blue Button, and it would run just like Zoom. Students also have a Zoom account, so if they're already comfortable in Zoom and you've integrated Zoom into your Canvas course, like I have right here, they can create a Zoom session instead if they want to. And sometimes our students would rather use some of the other outside tools. They'll pick Google Hangout, they'll pick other things like that, and it really is just a video conferencing area. Big Blue Button, like Zoom, has the ability to do screen sharing, it has a whiteboard, it has all those kinds of things. So if they're really wanting to get in there and plan, either tool will work really well for them. So that was my project group, but if I want to have a different group, I wanted to just show you from the beginning. Here is group creation. I can allow self-sign-up. When I do, it'll tell me how many groups I want to create, how many people I want in it, and it will assign a group leader. And it can be random or it can be the first person in the room. And that group leader is the one who we task with making sure the group is running on time and making sure that things are getting submitted. So if I hit the button, here's our new reporting group. And now that it exists, I can create assignments and I can create discussions that I can assign specifically to these groups. So let's take a look at that. In assignments, if I add an assignment and call it my group report, I'm going to figure out which assignment group I want it to go in. I'll put it in this one. I'm going to just do the same things I always do in an assignment. I'm going to decide what they upload. I'm going to decide how I want to take it. And here is where, right under plagiarism review, is where I can check if this is a group assignment. When I do, that's when I can decide about individual grades or group grades. I can put the right group here. If I don't have the right group, and I haven't made that group yet, I can make that group right now if I want to, so that I can keep going and get my assignment ready. And then when I save it, it'll be here under that group report, and it'll be seen as a group grade. Discussions are just a little bit different. Does Canvas prompt them to choose one means of collaboration over another? No, it doesn't. All of those pieces are there and are available to the students. But one of the things that I've found is that students don't always really know how much they can use that space that Canvas gives them for their group work. And so to me, one of the really big things that I think is important is that when you assign these groups in Canvas and you want them to be doing some real collaboration together, it really is worth it to spend a little bit of time the day that you are assigning and talking about group work to show them where their group space is, and to let them, and to kind of walk them through their group space and let them see all of the things that they can do there. And then they'll see that yes, they can make a Google document, or yes, they can do a page in Canvas, or yes, they can do all these different pieces of it. But Canvas doesn't really prompt them to pick one over the other. Students will just kind of gravitate to the one that they tend to like working in best. And often, especially with undergraduates, what we see is because a lot of the K-12 districts are Google campuses, they feel very comfortable in Google, and they tend to kind of gravitate towards working in Google and collaborating in Google because they've done it many, many times. So discussions are a little bit different. Let's go over here to where discussions are. And in discussions, what we do is we just add a discussion. And here's that area again. This is a group discussion. Which group is going to be discussing? Well, the project groups are going to be the ones to do that. Again, when I hit save here, here's what I see as an instructor. So as you can see, this is different than the assignment page. When I saw the assignment page and I hit save, it looked like every other assignment that I've saved. But here is where things look a little bit different for discussions. And that's because Canvas has made discussion spaces for each one of the groups. And so as an instructor, I need to go to them and take a look at what's happening. So here's project group 1. Here's everything that's being read. I can mark all of these red once I've seen them if I want to, so that Canvas can kind of keep up for me which comments I've looked at and which comments I still need to review. And then I can participate if I want to. Here are my projects. And I can go in and look at any of the ones that I want to look at from there. Then the students have their own spaces for that. So back in here in this group discussion area, when I go back and forth and take a look at how those discussions are going on, the students are going to get notified in their student area that there's something for them to do in their group, and it will take them straight to their own discussion and straight to their own group work. So here are my 2 groups now. But I assigned both of the discussions to this group, to the project group. If I go to their home area and I go to discussions, here are the 2 discussions that I've assigned to this group. They're not published, so that group can't see them, but they're there. And once I publish that discussion as a whole, then that discussion will be available for those group members. I can always click on the name of the course to come back. In student view, unfortunately, I can't sign up for a group as the test student, but here's what it looks like as a student. You can see who's in what group. You can find your group. And if you're not in a certain group, then you are not available to look into that group's work. You'll only see your own work and only get into your own group. If you have a course where you have cross-listed your courses and you have combined several sections of the same course, which a lot of people do, you can decide as you're making these assignments and discussions here in editing, you can decide if you want to, in all of these places, if you want the sections to interact with each other or if you want the sections to remain separate. Here is area 1. If I change it, go to this one. Here's where I can determine things by section if I want to. Can we assign a discussion post as group work, but assign the comments to the same discussion as an individual? You can assign the discussion post to group work as group work, yes. And let me show you what that looks like as a graded discussion here. This one I made a graded discussion. I don't have any students in it, which is why it's not doing what I wanted to do. Let me see if I can do it from here. And it's not published. So here's the group discussion. I go to Speedgrader. What you'll see for that discussion is, yes, your students' comments for the discussions will show up here in Speedgrader so that you can assign a particular grade or a particular number to a particular student. And so you can, if it's a graded discussion, you can look at those comments either here in Speedgrader or on the discussion page, and either one is fine. If you're using a rubric, then the discussion rubric will show up here and you can mark each one individually. Canvas assumes that group discussions are still probably going to be assessed on an individual basis, and that the idea of making it a group discussion is much more about closing down the number of people so that hopefully there's more depth and a more dynamic discussion that comes into play, but that you still want to assess individually. So it's a little bit different, but yes, they would show up right here in Speedgrader. Any other questions about groups in Canvas? Back here to this home page again and come back to people. Let's come back to our group space. So what I would reiterate, especially here, is that I think one of the things that's really, really important is to let students know that they have this space. I don't think the spaces get used very often because they'll kind of upload a file and they'll do some small pieces, but the real power of group work in Canvas comes from the fact that they get this very special space where they can do a lot of different working and where they provide them work in a lot of and allow them to work in a lot of different ways that work depending on what the students are going to be doing, how you're going to be assessing them, and how the students work in general. Are there any other questions about how groups work in Canvas? Or any ideas that you're thinking about that might be a good way to use groups in Canvas? Could I repeat my point about students not knowing about the recent activity? I'm not, Beth, if you could explain that a little bit more for me. Some concrete examples about what to use groups for. One thing that I think is really interesting is that if you are having students talk in breakout rooms in Zoom, and you're spending that class time and you're dedicating part of that time to the students working together on something in the breakout room, they absolutely can, that same group, because you can watch how the groups are made up in Zoom, and you can make them up ahead of time or you can let Zoom just randomly do it. But you can then recreate those same groups here in Canvas so that that discussion can continue on in different ways. And a lot of those discussions can, and a lot of that group work can center around making a presentation to the class as a whole. So the group is working on slides together, or they're working on however they want to present together in this group space. They're pulling together all the pieces they need to make a presentation to the class as a whole here. Here's where they can run through things. Here's where they can submit their presentation to you so that you can grade it and give them feedback, possibly before they actually present to the class or after, however you want to do it. And then when they present as a whole, then we're back in Zoom again, and students can share their screen and they can actually present. But sometimes when we give groups assignments and we ask them to work on a presentation for on a topic that's related to the course in some way, we don't really give them a space to work on those things with. We sometimes can tend to move towards having them just figure out how they want to collaborate and figure out how they want to work together. And they do find ways to do some of that. And as they're finding ways to do some of that, one of the ways we can help them is to give them the space in Canvas to do that work together, because they can do everything they need to do to create a presentation for the class right here in this space. They can meet, they can talk about it, they can work on a collaborative document together, they can upload images. I mean, they can pull everything together here instead of having to cobble together things through multiple emails or things like that. It just gives them a home to do some of that work. So often we do see that instructors assign different groups, different ideas that are related to the course to present to everyone else, whether it's elements from a chapter or ideas from main thinkers in that discipline, or projects and problems to solve or problems to pose. And so here's where they can do some of those things and create some of those presentations. We also see sometimes that groups are assigned to study a certain topic. and that they really actually are doing a group assignment where they're looking at a topic in different ways. They're contributing to the overall submission in different ways, because it's possible that that submission has different pieces to it that different group members tend to have to pull together and create together. And then we have kind of a dynamic going on, and especially now where we've got some students remote and some students in the classroom, this would be a great way, giving them something to do as a group, even if they're only doing one small thing as a group, even if they're only just having discussions in smaller groups so that they get to know each other a little bit more and they can feel connected to each other a little bit more, I think would make for a good class experience for them. If we've got people in the room, and I'm seeing from some of the names, and if you have done some really interesting group assignments or group discussions, feel free to start typing those in the chat so that we can share those ideas out with people who are new to groups in Canvas and maybe new to groups overall. So if you all have some ideas for how you've used groups successfully in the classroom, we sure would love to see them. Any other questions about groups in Canvas? We've got about 8 minutes left. Or if you're typing or about to type in the chat and would like to share ideas of how you've used groups successfully and used groups well. While people are thinking and hopefully writing, the other pieces about groups in Canvas and how those are constructed can show up here. If I go ahead and publish some of these group assignments here, you can see now that my group project is published, I've got the ability here to go to Speedgrader. And what you'll be able to look at here in Speedgrader in the group project is that as you pull down and look at your students, you'll look for the student submissions, which student has submitted, and then you'll be able to grade like you normally do. You'll either put a grade in for that student, and that grade will then replicate for the rest of those students in the group, or if you've decided to grade students individually, then you'll be able to look at these pieces and grade them out individually. But the grading experience itself is going to be very similar to how you're looking at things on an individual basis. And when we get to the Gradebook, you can see here's my group discussion. I've already kind of looked at that a little bit. And I have the ability here to go and look at graded projects. Now, that group project that I just created isn't showing up here, and that's because my test student isn't assigned to a group. So there's no way that my student would have that grade. Any other questions or examples for group work? Almost a year ago, when SMU adopted Quality Matters as its partner in establishing best practices in online and blended learning situations. One of the key pieces of Quality Matters is feedback and interaction. And Quality Matters looks specifically in courses for student interaction on a variety of levels. How the student interacts with the instructor, how the student interacts with the content, and then, and here's where groups come in, how the student interacts with other students. In these flex and virtual and online spaces, how can we pull students together so that they interact with each other in meaningful ways? And one of those meaningful ways that we can have students interact with each other is we can break larger classes down into smaller groups for either the purposes of an assignment, a presentation, or a discussion, and let them get to know each other better and let them work on things together. But if we're going to create those kinds of moments for them where they can interact with each other, what's really nice then is that in Zoom, in breakout rooms, and in Canvas, in that group space, we've given them the tools they need to be very successful when they do that group work, and we've given them the tools that they need to really actually interact with each other in a variety of ways so that each group can find its own way of working best. Okay, well, we've got a couple of minutes left, and I just want to let you know that if you are wanting to try and use groups in Canvas to assign students groups that either complement what's happening in Zoom or are different than what's happening in Zoom, you absolutely are not alone in this. I am the ATSD for the Simmons School of Education, but there is one of me in all of the schools here at SMU. In fact, we've got one here as our moderator. Masumi is here. She's the ATSD for Meadows, and our support person, Graham, does a very similar role over in SMU Global and online. So there are people all over the university who are here to help you as you work on groups. And so if you need help or you have a question about configuring groups, or you just want someone to look at it and make sure it's working okay, all the way through to grading it, then just let us know. We are absolutely here to help you and support you as you work on groups in Canvas or anything in Canvas. Your ATSDs really are stationed in your schools and ready to help. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and we're going to move out and let the next group come in. But thank you for spending an hour with us and taking a look at groups inside Canvas. Please let us know if you need anything along the way. And if you do have some really great group ideas and you want to share some of those, we have resources up in the Keep Teaching area, and we'd love to add more. So thank you very much.